2, 69, 17.
You know there are other numbers than that, but it's okay.
I know there are, but their entire point is to get to those numbers.
Fair. Hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans, it's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just three nerdy veterans geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, space is the place, and pizza does not belong in the same oven as pineapples.
Yes, it does.
Heresy. But we'll argue that one. Go ahead.
You know what's really good? The Papa John's Baconator pizza, which has 3 kinds of bacon and pineapple.
You had me right up until the pineapple, but the Baconator pizza is good. They went downhill since the coup, though. Their quality has suffered a little bit.
Not mine.
The local one has. They used to have fresher ingredients. Now it's not as good as it used to be, shall we say.
No, mine is perfectly fine. I don't know what's wrong with yours. But
Little Caesars is still, well, it used to be $5 fast, and now it's like $6 for the fast. But it's quick. You don't have to wait. So there's that.
It's toxic.
Probably, but what isn't these days? So
the only time I ever got food poisoning from pizza was at Little Caesars.
Oh, for me, it would have probably been when I went to what is that? Not Papa John's, CC's, the all-you-can-eat pizza place.
Oh yeah.
And when you used to go in there when they first opened, it was "Welcome to CC's," and they did it with that fake Italian accent. Grandpa Walt is probably rolling over in his grave right now.
Yeah. Grandpa Walt probably enjoyed the fake Italian accent.
Maybe. All right. So, do you have an opinion on the sacred pizza, Mr. Boop?
Oh, I'm all for pineapple. That's not a problem with me. My mom did hams with slices of pineapple on it. So for me, that's just another platform in which to deliver ham and pineapple goodness to me.
See?
Doc, are you pre-screening our guests now? Is that what's going on?
No, I honestly, I didn't know anything about the pineapple and ham thing. My family doesn't make ham like that. We do country ham, which is a salt-cured ham. Maybe why I'm so salty now.
We always did the maple glaze. You've never had maple glazed ham?
All
right.
I don't know.
We're going to have to broaden your horizons out. All right. So, Mr. David Boop, you've been talking for a few minutes with us, but we forgot to introduce you because we've been rude. I blame Cisca, as I always do, but can you introduce yourself to the listeners or our viewers?
Yes, I'd be glad to. Hi, my name is David Boop. I'm a Denver-based author and editor. I have 4, 5, 6 anthologies out. One novel, a couple of novellas, and about 60 pieces of short fiction, all in the speculative genre.
Yay!
And ladies, he enjoys long walks on the beach, popping the collar with flair.
Not in Colorado. They don't have beaches there.
Oh, of course we do. We have very large lakes with beaches.
There you go. I knew that.
No, you didn't.
Sure, I did.
You brain-damaged person.
Just go with it, Doc. All right. So the next part of that introduction, dear listener, is we tell you how we first found them. So this is another one of those interviews because Doc's taking over doing some of the booking where I got you'll be here or I'll stab you. So here I am. But Doc.
I don't ever threaten to stab you. Just cut you off.
All right. On that happy note, Doc, how did you find Mr. David Boop?
I think we met in the Bane Barfly back ages ago. I think actually before I was even a track director with Dragon Con. And it was either at Dragon Cons or Liberty Cons. And we just kind of hit it off and talked. Because David's an awesome guy and I can talk.
I would have never guessed.
And I found Cisca delightful.
See? Some people like me.
Yeah. It would probably have been my first Dragon Con where I came to work Kevin J. Anderson's Wordfire booth. And he took me up to the Bane Bar there. That would be most likely where it was.
Probably. I think it was the same night you met Mel Todd, who is a big we've had on numerous times because I'm a big fan of Mel's.
I am a big fan of Mel's as well.
So.
All right. So is the Baines bar actually a bar, or do they just call it that?
Well, there's an online forum called Baines Bar. And then at some of the conventions, a group of fans and people loosely associated with Bane will kind of set up a hangout. And there is booze involved. That's normally where I've been tending bar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was Baines Barflies it was for a while, and then became Speaker's Speakeasy, and now it's kind of retired. So
I've actually met Speaker. Interesting fella.
Oh, great fella. Yeah.
He was giving one of the few cons I went to before my doctor said enough. You can't take that much of your meds at once. And he was doing a science talk, and someone asked him some question. Was part of that, deep conspiracy, where everybody is convinced that science is out doing evil things to experiment on people. And he just looked at her and smiled and goes, "That's not how it works. That's not how any of this works."
Sounds like him.
And then he proceeded to explain to her in mostly nice words that I wouldn't have been as nice to her as given how rude she was. Something to the effect of, lawyers are real. Lawyers don't bow down before scientists, so they have to behave because they want to keep their cars. So anyway, he was, like I said, he was nicer than I would have been. It was an interesting first meeting.
See, I'm like the horrible person who I just started telling people when they knocked on my door in the barracks, "Yep, you're dying of cancer," and then closing the door on them.
They just want to know where that rash was coming from, Doc, and you just had no heart.
Not when they cough on my face.
Maybe that was just their way of bonding with you.
Yeah. She's not irrational.
All right, Doc. We got to ask him the religion questions. He already failed the pineapple on pizza test, but
he did not fail it. Okay, so Minority Report. So this is where you get to pick one of the three as your favorite. Minority Report, Blade Runner, or Dune.
Wow. Okay. So, different stages, different life. We're different people. Sometimes we start off in one religion and we end up somewhere else. When I was young, I definitely was a Dune. In my rebellious years, I was definitely a Blade Runner. And now I'm very cynical, and I would have to say I'm a very Minority Report now.
You say cynical, I just say realistic.
Very fluid of you.
And now when we used to ask this question, this is why we jokingly call it the religion question. It was Star Wars, Star Trek, or Firefly. And that's very obvious when you say the religion question because they've got cult followings. But that get a little boring. So Doc and I decided to mix it up a little bit. And now we ask that question and people's like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Well, the other thing is if you have people on the show multiple times, it gets a little like we already know your answer. And then it's really fun to watch when we've changed it on them.
Yeah.
So,
I could say I'm a polytheist when it comes to these things, but
I'm polytheist, so I'm going to be asking you about the fantasy ones now.
She belongs to the Church of the I'm going to stab you, and the heretical church of Pern was sci-fi. I don't know what that's.
Pern is sci-fi. There is no was.
Dragons equal fantasy. Enough said.
You can't say shit because you don't understand science.
Yeah, I'm gonna call shenanigans on that one.
Ha!
She bribed you, didn't she?
No, dude.
It's that stellar science cup she's drinking.
I got a long pedigree. I can go. I can. Yeah, no. Let's go. Let's go. Bring it.
Okay. So, Black Cauldron, The Chronicles of Narnia, or Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Okay. So, I love Black Cauldron's animation, but I recently watched it again and I'm like, there's no story here. I was looking for a story. There was no story. So I'm going to throw that one out. Younger, I'm all about the Chronicles of Narnia, and I still have a dear place for it in my heart. But where I am now, hide me, Eddie, please. I am all about the Roger Rabbit. I'm all about the Roger Rabbit. I went to Disneyland and I had to do the Roger Rabbit ride because you gotta.
when
I didn't know they
MTV,
had one.
we're going to show our age, but we remember when MTV actually played music videos. That's what the M stood for once upon a time.
Yeah.
The song Opposites Attract, when they made the music video for that, where they actually had the cartoon and the live action in there, they actually used that music video as a test for Who Framed Roger Rabbit to make that technology work.
Yeah. No, they did
that was the same producers for the music video. They were testing the theory out.
Yeah.
Yep. And
My
now
little bit
there's
of nerd trivia.
do it. So it's an awesome movie.
It is. It is. And
they tried to make her
holds up
more
fairly
wholesome.
well.
They tried to make the girl a little more wholesome in modern versions.
Yeah.
There's modern versions.
They've touched up the art to make her less.
Basically, they don't show her hoo-ha anymore. So it's basically what it is. So
and they also slimmed her curves up in some of the modern renditions, so she's less curvy and she shows less.
Yeah. No, I had to go out and find the Roger Rabbit Laserdisc to see whether or not it was true, and it's true. So
now, what they don't understand was she was.
You know that story, right? You guys know that story?
What story?
You're. Oh wow. Okay,
I've seen the movie, but I don't know what you're referring to.
So the scene where they're fleeing in Benny the Cab, and they hit the spill of what's the dip. And his tires melt and they crash and they go flying out of Benny. When Jessica goes flying, she spins around. You can see right up her dress, and they drew it all in and everything.
Oh wow!
Oh yeah. Additionally, there's a scene with baby. Was it Baby Huey? The baby, where he's walking through a hallway and he bumps into his secretary, and he basically. I don't know how PG-13 or whatever, but he basically takes his middle finger, sticks it up under her dress, pulls it out, brings it past his nose, and keeps walking. And you can see that if you go step by step on the Laserdisc.
They've cleaned up some of the shenanigans, but it was supposed to be over the top. That was part of what it was. It was.
Oh yeah.
It was satire. It was.
Yeah, but now I'm wondering why my parents let me watch it in Saudi Arabia.
They probably didn't know.
It's too fast. You can't see it with the normal eye. You have to go frame by frame. Nobody knew it was there until the Laserdisc came out and people started going frame by frame.
The other thing is they would put stuff like that in. So like if you slow down some of the stuff, now I haven't done this myself, but supposedly if you slow down like a Popeye, for instance, you can hear him actually cussing. They used to put stuff like that in as like sort of their joke to the system that was censoring them.
Yeah, they backmasked Robin Williams in Aladdin saying, "Jasmine, take off your dress," and that's in one of his scenes as the genie. And they discovered it when a bunch of kids watching Aladdin repeatedly over and over again, like starting and stopping the video, were ending up like taking off their clothes. And they're like, what the hell's going on? Why are all these children taking off their clothes? And they checked it out and they listened. They found it was backmasked in there. So they've removed that.
What is backmasked? That's not a term I'm familiar with.
So you remember when there used to be these big vinyl things called records?
I do.
Yeah. So if you...
Yeah, they sell them at Barnes & Noble still.
Yeah. I know. It's so amazing that everything's come back, right? So if you spin the record backwards, you can hear... recordings of the voices. This is where they said basically that all heavy metal bands had satanic messages. Yeah.
I remember
so if you play the record backwards, that's called backmasking. I used to be a DJ, so we were always looking for backmasked messages. My favorite was the B-52s. Had a backmasked message that basically said, "My dog's name is..." It was like Rover. He has fleas. So that was backmasked into the record. Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm a font of useless knowledge. And
I always thought that was like...
I wondered when people used to tell me those things were in there, and I'm like, how do they get them in there?
Yeah.
I always just assumed it was like a urban legend.
No. Backmasking was real. The satanic messages were fake, like the Paul is dead one. That's that one's fake. but other ones, because this became an urban legend, people started doing it for real to mess with people. So, yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. But we're here to talk about books, right?
JR, I'll triple your pay if you figure out how to do that with the podcast audio.
You can't with modern digital.
I'll triple your pay.
I mean,
it's totally possible. Just take your audio, drop it into Adobe Audition, then take another piece of audio and just lay it over it and just backwards. It's easy.
There you go.
How did you get people to be able to hear it?
They hear it subliminally.
You and I will talk offline. We'll put in there buy more books and review them. Or not, that'll be our back matter. It'll be like review your book.
I should have buy my books like John Lovitz in The Critic. Buy my book. Buy my book. That's not annoying at all.
All right, now get us back on track. You're supposed to be the grown up in the room.
Wait, what? You're the old fart. So which was your first love, sci-fi or fantasy?
That's a good
or
one.
Horror, because I know you do horror too.
I do horror. No, horror came about later.
That's called reading the news these days.
Yeah. So obviously Star Wars had a big impact on me. I'm at that perfect age where Star Wars, when it hit hard. And I became obsessed. I mean, we're talking bed sheets, drapes, the whole works, right? Yeah, I know. There's pictures. I'm never going to put them online. But it was pretty sad. People stopped talking to me because, every conversation started and ended with Star Wars, right? And so Star Wars was it was the first thing that I was interested in enough that I wanted to know more beyond just what I was seeing on the screen. So I read all the books about the making of, I read magazines about it, I read interviews, and then I started watching other movies that people who were connected with Star Wars was involved with. So Star Wars is a huge part of my life. Fictionally, I was given Chronicles of Narnia as a box set right about that time, or maybe a little before. And so, there was certainly fantasy as well. I'll also throw in there that mystery was a huge part of my life, reading Agatha Christie and Holmes and stuff like that. So in that regard, this is why I ended up in cross genre later on, is the idea that I like some science fiction and some fantasy mix, some mystery and sci-fi, mystery and fantasy, and so forth.
Well, that's the thing that's so awesome about speculative fiction is as long as you're not wanting to micromanage it like Amazon and JR, you can be very genre fluid and still stay in the same genre, really.
Yeah, absolutely. There's something for everybody.
You can be wrong. We'll allow it. Now, normally we would ask you what your first memory of the sci-fi or fantasy, but you just answered that. So, aside from the books and the Star Wars movie, do you remember like any of the games that were out? Like, I don't know if the tabletops were your era. I
grew up in Wisconsin, so yeah, I'm at the home of where Dungeons and Dragons was created. So yeah, we played D&D. I played video games from the moment they came out. I remember the wood panel Atari 2600, and basically all of it. I had action figures. I had everything, right? Literally, you can name it. If it was able to be gotten in Wisconsin, which means I didn't get everything, but if I could get it in Wisconsin, I got it.
See, that's why you're so friendly. Everybody I've met from Wisconsin's very friendly, even the socially awkward ones.
Well, we drink a lot. It's kind of like, right. It's like, okay, you're off of formula. Here's Miller. So yeah.
Fair enough.
Maybe I should move there. Doc wouldn't be so much of a lush if we were surrounded by people like that. So, what is it about speculative? Well, I'm just trying to say that around people that were actually bigger alcoholics than you, maybe it wouldn't be so bad. The people are like, oh, you're the
Honey, I
normal
live
one.
in the South.
The bar gets higher. Yeah.
And the bar gets higher for there, though.
But I'm not an alcoholic. I don't go to meetings.
Fair,
No,
fair.
as Lewis Black says, you're not an alcoholic, you're a professional. So
I am
Absolutely.
exploring and enjoying my world.
She's even got science molecules on her cup.
I know. JR gave it to me one time as he was trying to be nice to me because he was afraid I'd hurt him.
Sure, that's what we'll go for. So, what is it about speculative fiction that you love as a genre?
So I was a real good liar when I was a little kid. And I figured that anybody who could lie better than me, I could worship. No, really, honestly, I have always been a dreamer. And I hope I'm not the only one. But I really, honestly, I have spent more time dreaming up stories and worlds, those Star Wars action figures, right? Well, like they didn't just make Star Wars figures, they made Star Trek figures, they made Black Hole, they made Tron, they made Indiana Jones, they all these different figures. I would take all these figures and a little area set up in the basement or in the garage, and I would build stories about all of these characters finding ways to meet each other and have these big giant battles. And people would actually come over, like my friends would come over and they go, so tell me about the battle. And I would act out this entire battle sequence with the story and everything like that. And so, it's like I've always been somebody who has believed in the imagination. And so what appeals to me is when people have an imagination that connects with my own, that speaks a language that I speak. And that's what I love about it. And it doesn't matter what it is. I have dreamed up mysteries. I have dreamed up science fiction. I've dreamed up fantasy. I've dreamed up horror. I weird westerns, right? Like I never thought I'd end up in weird westerns, and here I am now, and that's one of my brands. So, yeah, I love good imagination. My parents used to, my parents were ministers, by the way, and so there was a lot of times where they were having Bible studies and stuff like that, and they needed somebody to babysit me, and the TV was a really convenient babysitter. And and I can remember entire Saturdays sat in front of the TV, starting early morning with Godzilla movies, and then going into like the Munsters and and Addams Family, and then even the Brady Bunch and stuff like that. Like I loved a good story, and that imprinted on me, and it's who I am now.
That's a good answer. We'll take it.
Thank you. I mean, I could come up with another one. I said I was a good liar. So
You keep that up, I'm going to put you in Congress. So how did your love of speculative fiction as a genre transition into you writing stories in it? Do you count the first stories that you told was when you were playing with those toys and making those scenes? Or what's your first memory of telling a story, and how did that transition happen?
wow. Okay. So yeah, those Star Wars figures were some of my very first. Of course, Dungeons and Dragons and things like that. I told a lot of stories through that. Um, even when I got into school, I was very fortunate that my school also had like a sci-fi class and a mystery class where we studied works of it, and we had to write essays and things like that.
Man, I got gypped.
Yeah, I know. My school is really weird. It's like we have these strong drama, literary, and stuff like that. But then we're also like the state champion football team. So it's like really weird. But I took a lot of English classes, and I was tasked with writing stories and stuff like that. So that's some of my first writing. The problem was I was undiagnosed ADHD at the time, and the revision process was really tough on me. So I could write something, but I couldn't rewrite it. It almost caused me physical pain to rewrite. And if you remember back then, we didn't have computers, right? We were just starting to get them, and they did not have word processors.
Stone tablets have no erase feature. That's all I'm going to say.
Correct. And you can only afford so much liquid paper. So, I would write something and I would say, that's good, and turn it in. And I didn't know that it wasn't good until I got the grade back. But I always got compliments on my imagination, right? Like, you're a good storyteller, you just don't have any crafting ability. It wasn't until much later, when word processing programs really started getting strong in the market, that they were able to keep up with how my mind works. And but before that, I actually thought I was going to be a filmmaker. I actually studied filmmaking a couple of times, took screenwriting program or courses, and studied audiovisual and things of that nature. But I wasn't particularly good at it at that time. So a failed screenwriter almost has to become some sort of an author or short story writer or something, because we still have stories to tell. We just need another medium to tell them.
Okay. Fair. So many authors will let their own real life experiences influence the stories they tell. So were there any specific formidable moments that shape you as a storyteller? Was it, building igloos out in the frozen northwest? Was it, hey, it's Wisconsin.
JR,
where do you think Wisconsin is?
Up north where it's cold. They have snow in the winter.
But not in the West.
Yeah, but
it's northwest of us.
Yeah, no, he's right. I built an igloo. He's not wrong. He's not wrong.
I think JR was starting to be a lieutenant or something.
Yeah, no.
I aced my land nav course all 4 times I went through PLDC.
So Wisconsin, one winter we got so much snow, we couldn't leave through the bottom floor of the house. We had to go out the top story.
I've seen pictures where they open the back door and they dig out ice shelves so they can keep their beer cold.
Right. Yeah. One time the wind chill was so bad that the news actually came on and said, do not go outside. There's not enough oxygen to survive, that you will die. And sure enough, there was always like 5 or 6 deaths the next day from people who couldn't get their key into their lock fast enough. So yeah, no, he's not.
I'm not leaving the South, damn it.
We can go build igloos and start our own little commune. We'll bring
you
Mel.
Can go build igloos. You got like an extra layer of padding. Mine's not that thick.
Igloos melt in the summer. Okay, so anyway, yeah. So as far as formulaic stuff, no, actually, we talk about that, write what you know sort of thing, right? I grew up in a very conservative family in a very rural part of a state that is kind of like Brigadoon, right? Like, changes come to Wisconsin about every 100 years when they let somebody in, right? And so, and don't get me wrong, there's a lot I love about Wisconsin. I'm not down on Wisconsin. I'm down on my place in Wisconsin, right? Like, I didn't fit there, right? And so I didn't have a lot of to write about. But really, when it comes down to when you're writing, it's not what you know, it's what you can research, right? And so you read a lot. You read a lot about other people's experiences. You read a lot about, we don't travel to other worlds. So when you write about other worlds, you have to do research, right? And, and stuff like that. So my writing is based mostly on things I've researched. Now, do I incorporate stuff? Yeah. For example, when I got married, I went on our honeymoon. We went to the Bahamas, and we were taken aback when you get off the ship in the Bahamas, Nassau, Bahama. You're immediately swarmed by all sorts of locals offering to either give you a tour of the island or braid your hair, right? And it was like, oh, pretty lady, braid your hair. You look like island girl. And it's like their fake accents are so delightful because they don't talk like that to each other. We listened. So And the guys were great because they're like, "Oh, I'll give you a tour of the island. I've been here my whole life." And the next guy's like, "He's lying. He got here last week. I've been here my whole life." Right. And I thought, I wonder if, like, when we have space stations and we have tourists who arrive at space stations to say, outside of Saturn or Jupiter or whatever, anything like that, it'd be the same thing. People are like, as soon as the spaceship docks, "Hey, I've been here. I was born on this station. I'll give you a tour." And it's like, "Oh, do you want flares in your hair? You'll look just like an alien," or something like that. And so I put that in a story, right? Like, there are lots of little experiences that we can translate into stories. But as far as like what I grew up with, I haven't written that story yet. I've tried a couple of times, but I'm no Joe Lansdale. I can't do Americana the way he does. So yeah.
Then don't make an Americana.
Well, the story begs for it. It's just I'm not a good enough writer yet. I'll write it someday.
Okay. So, transitioning into some of the... Has anyone asked for your autograph out in public?
I mean, at conventions, yes. I've gotten a lot of autographs, like just walking through the halls and stuff like that. Certainly after panels, before panels, and things of that nature. But no, I haven't. I mean, one time was, like, if I have a book with me and I give it away or something, somebody will ask for an autograph. Like one time I had a stewardess or flight attendant on an airplane asked me, she's like, "Do you have a copy of your book?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Will you sign it?" I'm like, "Yeah." So, stuff like that. But no, I don't get that. I'm not that famous yet, I'm not, people don't like go, "Oh, look, it's him." Not yet.
And unless you're like Sanderson or Martin, most authors they look like regular people, but because their face isn't, you're used to like how they describe things, but you don't see their face reading it. Or I mean, I guess there might be one or two who narrate their own stories, but
well, it's like Wednesday Addams said in the Addams Family movie. I'm dressed as a serial killer. They look like everybody else. It's the same with authors. We're all just like serial killers.
Yeah, I told everybody for Halloween I was going as a mundane.
There you go.
They went, "What's that?" My son goes, "It's normal."
Or a muggle or something like that. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, but mundane's a politer way of calling somebody a muggle. Yeah. So, anyways, but have you spotted somebody reading your book in public?
No, I have not. However, funny story, when my novel, She Murdered Me with Science, came out back in 2008, I was on the light rail. It was in Worldcon was in Denver that year, Denvention 3. And I was on the light rail heading down to the convention center, and I saw a guy reading a science fiction book. And of course, I'm really like all full of, bravado because I have a science fiction book that just came out. And I'm like, "Hey, by the way, I see you're writing science fiction. I just had a book come out today." And he goes, "Really? What's the name of it?" And I said, "She Murdered Me with Science." He goes, "I just ordered that this morning." And I'm like, "I'm sorry, what?" He goes, "Yeah, it came up as a recommendation for some other book that I was buying, and I decided to buy it." And I'm like, holy crap.
That's awesome.
So I did meet later and sign his book, copy of the book. So there you go.
That is wonderful.
2 for 1.
We'll take it. So this is the part of the interview, David, where we ask about everything you have written. So can you give us the Reader's Digest version of your body of work?
Everything I've read or everything I've written?
Written. He knows better than to ask the reading question.
Okay,
he once tried that one.
It sounded like read, and I'm like, okay, no, we can go there. We got time. So what have I written? Okay, so my novel is called She Murdered Me with Science. It's a sci-fi noir set in the 50s, and that is from Wordfire Press. That came out originally in 2008, and then Wordfire released it in 2016, I believe it was. All right. And then I have a novella that I self-published that ties into it. It's separate, so it doesn't have to You can read one, don't have to read the other. And then I have edited 3 Weird Western anthologies for Baen, straight out of Tombstone, straight out of Deadwood, and straight out of Dodge City. I have edited 2 pulp anthologies, pulp hero anthologies for Moonstone Books. Gentlemen Prefer Domino Lady. I co-edited both of these. Gentlemen Prefer Domino Lady and Domino Patrick, Daughter of the Domino Lady. And the Domino Patrick is coming out like real soon. And then I ghost edited another anthology. I have 3 space western anthologies coming out from Baen. The first one has been delayed thanks to shipping crises. And that is Gunfight on Europa Station, which was supposed to come out November 4th. It's now coming out December 20th. It is chock full of space western goodness, with a lot of great names involved with that one. I also just announced, and then the follow-up to it is High Noon. God, I'm blanking now. High Noon on Alpha Centauri B. That will be coming out next year. And then the final one is Last Train from Kepler 321c, which will be out the next year after that. What else? Oh, I just announced that I am editing a tribute anthology. I'm writing and editing a tribute anthology to Jack L. Chalker's Well World series called Permutations, where I'll be writing like a bookends sort of thing, and a bunch of authors are coming in to write original stories set on Well World. So if you're a fan of that old series, hopefully we're going to bring some new life and some new fans to it, because it's one of my nearest and dearest. And then I'm umming a lot. I'm sorry. I used to be a broadcaster. I should be better than this. At least I'm not popping my peas. So I got that going for me. But then I said, don't pop your peas for 5 minutes before we started. So, but now I got to work on adding the don't either. So additionally, I will be, I announced that I have a collection of my Weird Western short stories will be coming out from Wolfpack Publishing next year, and that's the Drowned Horse Chronicle Volume 1. What else do I have? Take a look. I have a busy board over here with all the things that I'm working on. So yeah, and then I've got about The Soul Changers, which is a media tie-in novel. That'll be my actually second released novel. Will be The Soul Changers, which is a paranormal horror set in the role-playing world of Rippers, which is out from Pinnacle Entertainment Group. That'll be an illustrated novel, and that will be coming out next year as well. So that'll be my first official second novel, unless something else comes out first. But I think it will beat anything else. So, and then lots and lots of short stories, some media tie-in stuff. Green Hornet, Predator, Black Bat, Veronica Mars. And then I have a regular column on a website called Gumshoe Review, which is a mystery website. And I have a 1,000-word mystery series called the Trace Walker Temporary Mysteries. And those come out about every quarter or so. Flash fiction mysteries about a fallen detective who's can only get work for a temp agency he discovers really early on is using him to solve unsolvable crimes.
Okay. So that all sounds fascinating, but we're going to talk to Doc. Calm down.
I just like it when you're like, oh.
And that's a highlight reel. I could go deeper, but I'm not going to.
But we're going to talk today about Gunfight on Europa Station. So,
yeah,
you going to be okay, Doc? You need a moment?
I'm fine. You continue to be the adult here.
So where did you get the premise for this collection of short stories? Was it psychedelics, Ouija board, overindulging in that wacky tobacco over there in Colorado? Gunfight gunfights or gunfighters are weird, so I kind of like it. But I mean, like, where did the idea come from?
I wanted to make money this time.
Buy the wacky tobacco. Got it. I'm tracking.
No. What? So Straight Outta Tombstone did really, really well. It hit the bestseller list, right? The national bestseller list. At the bottom, it was like 38, right? Like, but that according to Bain, that counts, right?
That's still there.
That's still there, right? So, unfortunately, the second two did not repeat the success of the first one. They both did very well, and they were both the second one, Straight Out of Deadwood, had award nominations and all sorts of stuff. So, in that regard, I am perfectly happy with both anthologies. Nothing wrong with great authors, great stories, and whatever. Did not bring the financial success I was hoping for. So I said, well, how do I tap more into the audience that I'm writing for? And I'm like, well, I can't necessarily, I'm like not a military guy. I don't do military SF, but I love me some Firefly. I love me some classic Star Trek. I love me some Outland with Sean Connery. I love me some Oblivion with George Takei. I mean, like, I love space westerns. I've always loved space westerns. And I thought, let's do an anthology of space westerns. And hopefully that will provide the kind of things that my audience likes, right? Like, so I got big people who write, space military, space opera, things of that nature. And I said, give me your worlds and give me like a planet where kind of maybe some of this Western tropes still hold true in things. And they responded. Oh my God, these stories, you're gonna freaking love them. I mean, we got everything. We got, alien sheriffs, we got robots, we've got, space, a little bit of space pirates, sort of like, space gangs and things like that. We got a little bit of everything in there for you. So
see, this sounds like it's gonna really jive with childhood memories of one of my favorite cartoon shows was Galaxy Rangers, and it was all space western.
What was the it was like Brett Starr or something like that. Wasn't there a Brett Starr in the Galaxy Rangers or something? Yeah.
I think so. There was Doc.
Yeah.
And they had cybernet robotic horses.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. We got some of that. And the second anthology, High Noon, has got amazing. I'm finishing up editing. I have to turn it in at the end of the month. I'm finishing up editing that right now. And again, whole cadre of amazing stories everybody's going to love. Literally, I got a little bit of something for everybody.
Nice.
Okay. So before we dig in, we are going to take a moment to look at this glorious cover. So what can you tell us about this cover art? Where did the image come from? What's the story behind its creation?
Okay. So this is not the first cover that we had. And it's one of the few times that Tony said, I actually listened to my authors. No, I'm kidding. She always listens to her authors. But what had happened was they gave me a cover that didn't have any of the sci-fi elements of it. It just like all of those little Cthulhu alien creatures wasn't there, and so forth. He had a regular 6 gun and things like that. And I said, Tony, this is great, but it doesn't look science fiction at all. And she looked at it and she said, you know what? You're absolutely right. And so they went back and did a second draft of the cover with adding the alien elements, the kind of the explosion in the background and so forth. Now, here's a fun thing. I don't know how much you can zoom in on this picture, but when you get the cover and you have it in your hands, if you look very closely to zoom in on that badge. All right. Yeah.
It blurs out.
It's the Bane logo.
Bane logo. Nice.
So he is a sheriff for Bane, the Bane Continuum, the Bane Empire in the future, right? Keeping law and order in the galaxy. So yeah, No, they did the second draft was amazing. I love this cover. It is everything that you
His
want
name's not
in.
Joe Buckley.
Yeah, it's everything you want. It literally is. It is. So I love this cover. I believe it's another Dominic Harmon who did all the covers for my first 3 anthologies, which was he's just so talented. I can't speak highly enough about Dominic.
So, and we've had Jenny on, and she's in this anthology. She's
Mhm.
awesome.
Yes.
And I know
Yeah.
the names of several of those other people. You
Mhm.
did get a good smattering of wonderful names and
We've
variety.
interviewed some of them.
Yeah. Yeah, because I wanted to get not only people that Bain audience knew, like your Elizabeth Moon, your Jane Linskull, Will McCarthy, Marty Shoemaker, and so
Just
forth, right?
everybody
I
who
want,
reads knows.
yeah, but I wanted to get some people who maybe um, have been successful in other areas and have not, and other publishers who maybe have not had a chance to read before. Michael Haspel, who is just an amazing author, he's got some stuff coming out in Warhammer, right? So Warhammer fans, you're going to love Mike's story in there. It's not a Warhammer story, but you can tell that this guy loves his Warhammer. He's such a good
You
author.
should send it to Henry Cavill, who loves Warhammer.
Yeah, we've been talking about that lately. And then Alex Schwartzman, he does the UFO series, the unidentified funny objects. So this guy knows science fiction. He did not give me a funny story though. He gave me quite a serious story. Patrick Swenson had a series of sci-fi noirs. Kath Rambo obviously has had lots of science fiction. Alistair Mayer's known for his work with Asimov's and Analog, right? So all of these people, of course, Alan Dean Foster, who's my mentor. I learned so much from this guy, and him and Kevin James. I got Kevin in some of the other anthologies, but and Mike Stackpole. They all were very, because I was a Star Wars reader. They were all very influential on my writing early on. And so any chance I can get to get one of them in an anthology, I'm going to take it because, Star Wars, they know some space Western, let me tell you. But no, everything in here is delightful and has that us against the final frontier sort of thing.
I like that. I'm really looking forward to it. I have it in my I may have gotten the pre-order or the advanced ebook that Bain does already on my Nook.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm waiting for the weekend when I have time to read.
What is this time you speak of?
I don't know. You keep scheduling things.
Well, the great things about short stories are that you can get in and out pretty quickly, and like your legs don't even fall asleep on the toilet, which is great, because like if you're reading a novel and you can't put it down, next thing you know, you're crawling out of the bathroom, and that's always embarrassing, unless you live alone like I do. So nobody gets to see me do that. So,
and who's behind you?
Oh, that's Jack. So. So and not Jack Skellington. Everybody says like, oh, Jack Skellington. No. Actually, when I bought my skeleton, there was 2 of them. One was named Jack, and the other one was named Bobby. What?
I have
Too
an
soon?
ex-boyfriend named Bobby.
I thought you could go with Jill and put a bucket of water in each of their hands, but
no.
Anyway,
no, they had a morbid sense of humor. So
okay. So
yeah.
what would your 30-second elevator pitch be for this anthology?
If you're missing Firefly and you have reservations about the upcoming reboot, this will give you everything that you love about Firefly. If you're missing Star Trek because you've been watching Discovery or other shows that you're not happy with, this will give you everything that you love about Star Trek. If you're missing Sean Connery and wishing that he had done a sequel to Outland, like I do, this will give you everything that you're missing about Outland. No, it's literally everything good about what we don't know about outer space.
Very cool. I look forward to it. It's beautiful cover art. I like the colors. Those are definitely some standout colors.
Oh yeah.
And
That was
so what tropes do you think you really hit best with this anthology?
so the settlers is a big one. The idea of going into unexplored regions and trying to make a life for yourself, and the things that work against you. When we look at
Yeah.
a lot of the old westerns, it's a lot of the point of views of the small towns trying to eke a living in a very unhospitable place, and the things that people have to do, good and bad, to make that work, right? And the rule of thumb, when I sent out the invite to both of these, is don't set it on Earth, right? Like, I don't want a sci-fi western on Earth. Give me unexplored regions of space. Give me things that we have never seen before, right? Give me alien landscapes, and show how people have to survive in those conditions, right? And then, obviously the great trope of good versus evil, right? And there's evil, and then there's greater evils, right? Because there's some characters that are not, shall we say, as honorable as others in this anthology. But ultimately, that honor is a slippery slope, right? Like, what do you have to do against a greater evil, right? Stuff like that.
Okay. All right. So that's a lot to think about, but I like things that make you think. That's a good thing. And I think short fiction is ideally suited for that because you can explore ideas in minutia and without belaboring it because you've got a limited word count to do it.
Mhm.
Yeah. So let's talk about your story in this collection. What is your story in this collection called?
It is called Showdown on Europa Station, and it's kind of the theme story for the anthology, and it's about um, a space colony, actually a space mining colony on Europa, that's owned by the Coca-Cola Corporation, because believe it or not, Coca-Cola still needs water. And so there's a water mining facility, and they request an ME, a medical examiner. And I'm like, when I came up with the idea, I'm like, what is the thing that I do not ever see a story really about? And I'm like, the Undertaker, right? We always show the Old West Undertaker as usually kind of this creepy sort of person. My favorite has to be Back to the Future 3, where he's always measuring people for their coffins and stuff like that, right? Like, that's just like, that's gold. And and I thought, well, almost every settlement had to have somebody to bury, the dead, because there was often a lot of dead. And I was like, so how do I get an undertaker on a space colony? Like, how does that look? And then so I started crafting a story about why would they require an undertaker, or in this case, like a medical examiner, coroner sort of guy, when they actually have like doctors and stuff like that already there. And so I started playing around with the idea of how do you dispose of bodies on another world, especially if you can't cremate them, because of course, oxygen rich environments probably pretty hard to like have open flame or anything like that, so you can't cremate a body. And I came up with the idea of burying the bodies down, basically like sinking them, like burial at sea. And that's where the story kind of begins.
Dark. but I'll take it. So what can you tell us? What can you tell us about our main character?
So his name is Break, or his nickname is Break. They call him Break because when his mother was in labor, father was driving them to the hospital, and he had to slam on the brakes because he was busy looking back to his wife as the baby's crowning, and he's not looking ahead of him, and he looks and he has to slam on the brakes to avoid crashing into a truck in front of him, and Brake just kind of slipped out. He kind of And so his dad called him, "Oh, you're my big break," and that becomes his nickname. He is clever, and he's at least remotely honorable, and he realizes that he's pretty quickly on that he's been sent there for a purpose. He doesn't know until the shit hits the fan, basically.
Okay. So normally we ask about the secondary characters. With the shorter length, do you have a secondary character in this story? And if so, can you tell us about them?
I do. I do have some other characters in there. He's got basically a shadow, a person from the Coca-Cola security force that follows him around. It becomes kind of a love interest. Yeah, I mean, there's other characters, but it's such a short story. I don't want to dive into too much because I want you to be able to discover it when the time comes.
All right. Well, because you said it that way, what can you tell us about the bad guy without spoilers? Is there anything, given how short it is, that you can tell us?
No, I can't tell you anything.
Okay. Totally works. But I have a question. Is this part of a grander universe you plan to write in more?
Not as of yet. I have enough stuff on my busy board right now that this is not something I'm going to be returning to anytime soon. And it's pretty much a self-contained story. I mean, I could come back to it again later, like he gets transferred to another colony or something like that. But it's really pretty self-contained, and yeah, sometimes they are. Sometimes they're one and done.
So
that's what. Never mind.
I was waiting for it. Oh, so close, JR. So close. So I'm going to steal JR's question because he's corny like that and he deserves punishment. If your characters met you in a back alley and they knew you were the one who put them through all of this stuff, how do you think you'd fare?
Well, I mean, it really depends on the character. Because if we take just the story here, it turns out fairly well, right? It's a good thing, yeah, a lot of people die, but the character gets laid in the end. So, I mean, I don't think he's going to complain too much.
Guys never do.
Yeah. But as far as other characters I've written, fair to partly cloudy. My mystery detective, my mystery series, that guy hates my guts. I know he hates my guts. Every time I write him, I can just see him looking up from the page going, really, MF, really, this is what you're going to do to me this time? F you, right? Like, I know he doesn't like me. The character in my Noel R. Glass, in my She Murdered Me with Science series. He's like, you don't understand me. I don't think we're communicating, because, I'm smarter than you. He is. My Noel Glass is much, much smarter than me. And it's really hard for me to write him sometimes because he's so much smarter than me. He has to keep dumbing down his story for me because it's working on such a higher level than I even understand. So it really depends. There's some characters that would be like, oh, wow, thanks for doing that for me. You really helped me get through this really tough time I was having. And others would be like, you asshole. What the hell were you thinking? I know nobody in the Soul Changers would like me for what I did to them. But I do some horrible things to them. So, because it's paranormal horror, it's paranormal fantasy. So I do all sorts of horrible things to them, and none of them would be appreciative of what I was doing for them. They wouldn't see it. Nah, not at all. So,
That's parenting's like that sometimes.
yeah. Yeah.
So,
It is.
do you have a favorite character archetype?
So I like every man, every person, every man, every person, every woman, the normal everyday person who is in over their head. I like that. And that's probably because I feel over my head almost every day. But I like that character. I do. I like the person who has to rise up. I'm also a big favorite of the redemption story, right?
Mhm.
I have a lot of fallen heroes, mostly because I've written a lot of noir, right? So a lot of my characters have had really traumatic events happen before the story takes place, or will happen within the first few pages of the story, and then they have to come back from. So the redemption arc is also very, very big for me. So yeah, those two especially, the everyman and the redemption arc.
Okay.
So,
I do enjoy the everyman as well. That can also, on the one hand, it's easier to write because you don't have to make them special. It also makes it easier, I think, for readers to relate to it because it could be them. Whereas, not everybody could be James Bond and, back flipping off a mountain and landing on an airplane in motion
Right.
and doing
Well,
all that stuff, right?
some of my earliest Dungeons and Dragons campaign was basically taking me and my friends, and you enter into this big storm pipe, storm drain pipe, and you find a fantasy world that's buried beneath the surface in a very Jules Verne or H.G. Wells sort of way. So one of the things I always like to do was have them make themselves up as characters, and then give them skills and so forth. It was one of my favorite stories to do as a GM.
Okay. So we all know that every literary universe has its own internally consistent rules of science, technology, and magic. So, what sort of tech and/or magic can we expect from from your story?
So Shimmer Science is especially fun where this is concerned. And that's because it's what they like to call oh god, what's the term they're using now? Revisionist sci-fi or retro sci-fi, where you're looking at the past and adding elements of the future that is going to be coming, but maybe had already been there and people didn't know it existed, right? So a lot of my stuff in that era is either alt history or secret history. So with that, what I tend to do when I write an old glass story is I take a look at a technology and say, how do I make that into something that could have happened in the 1950s or the 1940s or whatever, right? So I'm always looking at that idea. And so, like, I currently working on an old glass story that involves a perpetual motion machine. And I'm like, how do I build a functional perpetual motion machine in the 1950s? And so that's kind of the questions I always ask. And then I have to research what technologies were available and then kind of assemble them, take pieces of this, pieces of that to assemble the device that's going to be the murder weapon, because it's always going to be something that shouldn't exist but does. So, for example, I'll give you a really cool example, and this is the only time that I get to attach the name futurist to myself, because Other authors are really good at being futurists. I wouldn't say that I am, but in this particular case, I am. I invented for She Murdered Me with Science a maser weapon, a microwave weapon, which, as we've seen in the news the last few years, they're using microwave weapons against our embassies. And I'm like, did they read my book? It's like, yeah, horrible, but did they read my book when they came up with a maser weapon? So yeah, there's that.
Okay. So keep down the right question. There you go. So, of all the tech that you created, specifically, we're speaking about for Gunfight on Europa Station for that story.
Okay.
Of all the tech you invented in that universe, what would you like to have for daily use?
Oh, probably the Uber Manta. So the Uber Manta is a submersible car. So yeah, basically, I play around with the idea that every technology is sponsored by a corporation in the future, sort of like, how every technology was created by the military or porn previous. Oh yeah, the porn creates all of our technology. If they can, DVDs, Blu-rays, all created by the porn industry. But technology is either created by the military.
Wait, does that mean that Skynet's going to come out of Pornhub?
Oh, absolutely. Oh,
no,
it's already
OnlyFans. That's why Nick will survive it and we won't.
Yeah,
this is true.
But the idea that going forward, we're already seeing that space travel is being sponsored by corporations now, not government. And so I thought, well, basically in the future, then, if Uber wants a particular vehicle for, say, like a space colony to take, to pick up and deliver people from the spaceport to their hotel, they're going to have to invent the cars to do that. Or, in this case, since it's an underwater colony, because you can't be on the surface of Europa, they would invent the submersible that could be used there. So yeah, I like the idea that corporations will push certain technologies forward because there's a need, and if there's a need, there's money.
Okay. So how would you abuse that for daily use since Doc is falling asleep on the job?
Heck, I would go out. I'd move next to the ocean. I'd go drive around and find Atlantis. Something. Ooh. Yeah, I'd go, deep diving and not have to worry about, the bends or anything.
Would you tell people if you found Atlantis, or would you keep it to yourself?
Really depends on what I find there.
I'm sure he'd tell me.
I would tell you'd probably be in the seat next to me.
I do have a habit of doing things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Come on. We're what I show up, I say, hey, you know what? You can go to work tomorrow, or we can jump in the Manta and go find Atlantis. You're going to be like, I'm calling in sick.
Yeah.
All right. So for that road trip, what snacks would you bring?
Ooh, definitely some peanut M&Ms. You don't have a peanut allergy, do you, Cisca?
No, I don't.
Okay, definitely need some peanut M&Ms.
Classy. Okay.
All right. Diet Dr. Pepper, which I actually like better than Dr. Pepper. I don't know.
He can drink the Diet Dr. Pepper. I'll bring the bourbon.
You're not driving, so it works that way.
Yeah. Technically, I'm not driving either. I'm swimming. But can you get an SWI?
I don't know.
Well, our co-host is a boat cop, so we'll have to ask him when he comes back.
Okay, there you go. I guess it depends on whether or not you run into something.
Ooh, that could be problematic. You run into a great white shark.
I would probably bring clam dip and chips.
Ooh, clam dip. Oh, now, what type of chips? I'm curious. Are we going with something kind of like like a Ritz sort of thing, or maybe
A
something
Ruffles really does best, I think,
Ruffles?
Better than a Ritz.
Well, like
But I do like
pita.
kettle chips.
Kettle chips are really good. We got some good kettle chips out here. What about like a pita chip? Would you be up for a pita chip?
I like pita chips. I've even made homemade pita chips. Those are really good. I prefer those though with my spinach artichoke dip.
Okay. Well, you know, what's great is it's underwater, so probably, you know, we don't even need a cooler. We just put it in the trunk. You know,
Exactly.
So we could bring both, really, honestly.
Yeah.
Sounds like a date.
So it's planned, my man.
All right.
Jay, are you there?
Yeah, I was waiting for you to ask the alien question next.
Okay, well, I was just waiting. I wanted to see if you wanted to weigh in on our snack choices.
No, I got nothing.
I wish to invoke my Fifth Amendment rights to answering whether or not I'm an alien.
No. We want to know the aliens in your story.
Oh, okay. I can't tell you about the aliens in the story.
Okay.
Because that's part of the whole story.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. So I've certainly written a lot of aliens in the past. I've written many different types of aliens.
Well, how do you design your aliens? Is it need? Is it, you know, too much chocolate brownies?
You guys really think that I am stoned all the time because I'm in Colorado, don't you? Right? Like, that's not what happens here.
I think for JR is just jealousy, and for me it's just having fun.
Yeah, because you know,
everybody I know. I will admit, when I lived out of Fort Bliss, when we were stationed at Fort Bliss, I knew a lot of people in Colorado. None of them were getting stoned that I know of, but they all have made really good brownies if they baked.
All right. You know, it's interesting too because, of course, baking.
Yeah, people in Grenadiers are going to come after me.
Yeah, people
or Outland. Sorry.
Here in Mile High City, you know, baking, of course, is because we're a Mile High is interesting. So probably why they were so good is they're much lighter here when they make them in Colorado, and they're much denser and thicker and more chocolatey when they're made at sea level. I don't know. That's a guess. That's just logical.
I don't know.
That's logical.
I mean, I spent a good bit of time in Outlands eating brownies and knowing amazing cooks. So that could probably be it too.
No, surprisingly enough, not everybody here is stoned all the time. Just part of the
time. That is good to know. All right.
So so how do I design my aliens? Yes. So it's really to fill a need. It really is. You know, the alien is the Deus ex machina in a lot of ways. It is, I have a need for a character to overcome something inside of them, some sort of, you know, they need to transform, and to transform, they need challenges, and those challenges need to be specifically designed for the things that are holding them back from that transformation. So when I design aliens, I design them as the stone that they're you know up against, right? The challenge that must be overcome for them to reach the next level. So that's basically what my aliens are, unless of course it's like a tie-in or something, and then I'm writing aliens that have already been designed.
That's always a good way to do it. All right. So I guess you could subvert expectations that way, but the readers would tend to get upset. So clearly this interview is winding down. But before we wrap this up, was there anything about gunfight on Europa Station that we didn't ask that you want to tell us?
Where to find it. So
where can you find it?
Bane!
So Bane.com. You can get the digital copy or pre-order the physical copy, and of course Amazon. But because it's Bane, it's also available from your local bookstores. Your independent booksellers can special order it in. Again, it was supposed to be out November 4th. It is now streeting December 20th, so just in time for Christmas. But that's the physical copy. The digital copy, obviously, because it doesn't have any problems with the supply chain issues, you can get that right now. If you're a Kindle Nook, Kobo reader, you can get it right now.
Yes.
Okay.
If you go to the Bain website, you can get it in all the formats without having to pay Beezy Butt.
Yeah.
We're sorry, Bezos. She knows not what she does. All right.
I know exactly what I do most of the time, maybe.
So is it going to be out in audiobook?
So because anthologies are kind of difficult to do in audiobooks, the first 3 that I did with Bain have not been made into audio. I don't know. It's always possible. They haven't told me this. They generally don't tell me this. I ended up, one of the anthologies I'm in ended up on audio, and the editor didn't even know it was on audio. So because these things kind of happen in package deals, they'll make deals for a lot of different books, both novels and anthologies. So I'll find out when everybody else finds out if it ends up on audio. So I do not currently know if it's going to end up in audio.
All right. So if you find it on audiobooks, people, just circle back. We'll have in the show notes how to reach out to David, and you can tell him it's out there.
I would appreciate that immensely.
So before we let you go, dear listener, we'd like to remind you that your opinion matters too. So if you would please be kind and speak your mind on the reviewing platforms. Every 100 readers that the reviews that this novel gets actually helps keep Cthulhu asleep for a few more hours. So do your part and save the universe, because your reviews help the right readers find the right books. So please be kind and speak your mind. You can review it over at Bain as well, right, Doc?
I think so.
So you can definitely renew it on Amazon, even though she doesn't like Bezos. He was right and holy. You can review it on Barnes & Noble, Goodreads. You can start a website, start a podcast. You can put it on BookBub. I'm probably missing places you can review books, but anywhere you can, you should do your part. And
Word of mouth, Facebook page. There you go.
Show up at a convention. Show up at a convention. Just give me a review while I'm sitting at the booth or on a panel. I'm good with that.
That's true. Maybe if we get enough funny ones, we could even do an episode where like we read their weird reviews to them, like the late night shows did. That might actually be funny.
I got some great negative reviews. So,
but I don't know if I could do that and keep a straight face. So we might need a guest host. We'll see.
Or a lot of alcohol.
We've tried podcasting intoxicated and it didn't go well. One of us at least has to be sober to run the ship.
Right. That's true.
So, all right, as we bring this puppy home, David Boop, can you tell listeners how to find you?
So where I tend to be the most is Facebook, and you can find me at Facebook / I think it's a / David .boop _ updates. David.boop _ updates. And Twitter at David.boop. And then davidboop.com will get you to me, and Longshot Productions, my company, www.longshot-productions.net is another place you can find me.
All of that will be in the show notes. And for just a momentary clarification, his Facebook is facebook.com/dboop.updates.
/ not /
Whatever makes you happy. I mean, they can try
I'm dyslexic, so it's all the same to me.
Yeah.
Well, we don't judge, but all the contact information will be in the show notes. So check them out.
Well, the problem is I don't do /fiction, so I always have a problem with it.
Fair. And we don't know what's on the other side of that /. I mean, it could be all kinds of weird. Well, anyway. All right. So you can find us on Twitter at twitter.com/SF_fantasy_show, Sierra Foxtrot _fantasy _show. You can email us at blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. Again, that is blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. All the hate mail can go to weird1@Cisca.com. That's her personal website and everything. We don't judge. We just let her embrace her weirdness. You can follow us on Facebook, stalk us over there where all the shenanigans happen. Facebook.com /groups / Blasters and Blades podcast. You could support the show on our website at anchor.fm/blasters-and-blades. Again, anchor.fm/blasters-and-blades, where you have our website, but you can also support us with a Patreon-style model of monthly subscription. All of that helps keep the light on. Now we've got to pay all our renewals because season 2 has started, and they kind of want to get paid to keep this on the air. So every little bit you do helps. You can support the show also on our buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Again, buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Put a note in the comment section when you do that it's for the podcast, and I promise I will keep Doc Cisca and Nick Garber duly intoxicated. They will drink until their liver surrenders. And good God, woman, are you got like crocheted handcuffs on or something?
No. I'm playing with yarn.
All right, I'm just checking because, you know, that sort of looked in the miniature like you had made like yarn handcuffs, and I was going to ask some questions. Like, it's not that kind of show, Doc.
You're not that kind of lucky.
Ooh. All right. Well, are you going to bring us home and tell us how you're going to get lucky with that booze? We broke her.
Thank you for spending us for Nick Garber and the very tortured, very not lucky J.R. Handley. I'm Cisca. This was the Blasters and Blades podcast. We'll be back next week. Same time, same place, indulging our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, torturing JR, all things that go boom, and especially the pineapple on the pizzas.
Not everyone can be right all the time. The rest of them.
Oh, I am right more often than you want to admit.
No, pineapple does not belong on pizza. We will find guests. We will refute this. We will have the great showdown. I don't care what our guest says. This time the guest is not always right.
JR, pineapple is delicious.
I actually know one person that wrote it into their book. It was Choose Your Own Adventure, where eating the pineapple on pizza was an instant death move in their pick your path fiction.
You know what, JR? That's fine. Maybe it would be good for you. You never know.
Yeah, it doesn't sound good. But at least it'll keep me alive not doing it, because no instant death for me.